Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mystery Theory podcast. Today, we are going to talk about the case of Kelly Dwyer. This is a very interesting case because, in the end, is based in a lot of circumstantial evidence. So for some people that is not going to be enough, but for some others the circumstantial evidence really only points to one direction. So we're going to go through what happened, a little bit of the background of not only the victim but also the suspect, and then in the end there's going to be a lot of behind the scenes and how this case ended up coming together to be actually a case in court. Now, it all started on Thursday, October the 10th, 2013. Kelly was 27 years old. She went out on a date with the guy that she was seeing for about a year. His name is Chris Soko. They were introduced by a friend and they started seeing each other after that. By October of 2013, they've been again seeing each other for about a year. Now, that particular night, Kelly stopped by Chris's apartment building and they are caught in cameras. I think it's the lobby cameras, and you can see that they meet and then they go out of the building. Now, according to witnesses, they immediately got out and went out for a few drinks. This was not too far away. Actually, it was just across the street from his apartment. This was a small bar. It's called Alien, and it's just one of those local places. And in that particular bar worked a friend of Kelly. Her name is Chanel, and I assume, because of what she said, that she works at the bar. I don't know if she was a bartender or if she worked there. I don't know what role she had, but she was there that night. And she chatted with Kelly for a while, with Kelly and with Chris, with both of them. And while she was talking to Kelly, she mentioned that the next day, Friday, October the 11th, was her day off and that she planned to go to a yoga class, do laundry, run errands, but overall have kind of an easy day. Now, later on, Kelly and Chris got hungry and decided to go to Ian's, which is a local pizza place that is just down the street from the bar. So they went, brought the pizza to the bar area, and it is not 100%. I just didn't understand how you can go get pizza one place and then come and eat it in the bar, but apparently they were sitting outside having a good time, and some say it was even like a picnic bench outside the bar where they were sitting. But the point is that they were just casually talking and eating the pizza when around, at around 2 a.m., Kelly and Chris decided to call it a night and they headed to Chris's apartment, okay? Again, it was just across the street. So Kelly's friend saw how they not only left the bar area but also got into Chris's apartment building. Now, from there, Kelly vanished without a trace. That was the last time that she was seen alive. Now let me tell you a little bit about Kelly because I think that we need a little bit of background. Kelly had moved to Milwaukee in 2008. She moved for college and then she kind of lost herself a little, or at least according to her friends, she was trying to find herself. So she started taking yoga classes. She took a part-time job as a nanny, and then she even took another job as a sales representative in a store. And eventually, she found her people. One of her friends said she found her tribe. She worked with most of her friends, so they were not only co-workers but also very close friends. And she seemed to have settled a bit and kind of getting ready for what was coming next. According to her friends, Kelly's friends, she was falling in love with this guy, Chris. But let me tell you about Chris, because, for a relationship, we need a couple of people. So, let me tell you his side of the story. Chris was kind of in a different position compared to Kelly. Chris was interested in sports. He loved golf, and according to his mother, he was playing golf since he was 3 years old. Chris graduated from Boston University with a degree in international business, which, by the way, had nothing to do with sports, but because of that degree, he stumbled upon an opportunity that, according to his mom, changed his life. He was hired as an IT by the Yankees, and he was not only a major Yankee fan, but, it was a dream come true. That was the happiest that he's ever been. He worked, he had his office in the stadium, and it was almost too good to be true. But then, I really couldn't find the why. But for whatever reason, he left New York and ended up in Milwaukee in 2009. Now, granted, this was a big position because he was the chief information officer for a big relocation management company. So he was doing very well in this new job. He was making a lot of money. And he was kind of a big deal in what he was doing. So, he was 38 years old, so about 11 years older than Kelly. He had an appeal, some people would call it. He was educated, he was smart, he had a great job, nice car, beautiful place in the east side of town. Kelly was falling in love with him. But if you asked Chris, hey, can you describe your relationship? He would say that they were friends with benefits. And she knew that, so it was not a secret. She was falling in love with a guy who really was more like thinking of her as booty call kind of person, basically. And so she kept her options open, okay? They dated. Both of them knew they were not exclusive, so they were dating other people. And Kelly even had a dating profile online. And she did meet other guys while still seeing Chris, so they were not exclusive. Now, something started to worry Kelly's friends, and this was just the fact that she started to have, or at least they started to notice, some bruises on her neck and wrists. And when they would ask, what is going on, she would say something like it was a crazy night and laughed it off. And really, they couldn't just pinpoint if this was something that was going on with Chris or if this was something, maybe she was seeing somebody else from the dating app. Not sure, but everyone was pretty worried about her. Now, the last time that Kelly was with friends and she was alive, and the last time that she was seen, it was that Thursday night around 2 a.m. Well, technically Friday at 2 a.m. So Friday came and went, Saturday did too, and she didn't show up to work on Sunday the 13th. Her coworkers immediately called her. You have to understand that her coworkers are not only that, but also her friends and kind of the family in this case. So they call her, but the phone was off. They tried to reach her on social media, but nothing. This was not like Kelly, so they called the police after looking for her and going to her apartment and doing everything that they could. Police right now had to go through a lot. You have to remember that the last time that she was seen was on Thursday, and now it's Sunday. So they decided to go through the footage of the night that they went to the bar, and specifically when they went back to Chris's apartment. Now, when you go through the footage, you can see that Chris is opening the door for her. They were talking, they were laughing, and walking towards Chris's apartment. They were getting, you can see footage of them in all kinds of different cameras and angles. I think there are 28 cameras in total in the building. So you can see up until this point where they turn right into his apartment. So the last I know, she entered his apartment. So let's go visit Chris, who probably know where she is, if she's still there. The police went to visit Chris, who seemed like a nice guy, but he described their relationship as an encounter a couple of times a week. And he defined their relationship as we party together. That particular night, when they came back to his apartment, Chris said that they did lines of cocaine, had more drinks, sex, and ended up passing out on opposite ends of the couch. Chris then said that he heard the door close at 9 a.m. the next morning when he assumed that she left. What he really doesn't know up until this point is that police already went through his surveillance and that she never came out of his apartment. At least she was never caught in camera. So Chris tried to make things shift a little bit. And so he now explains that he and Kelly were not exclusive, and Kelly was dating online, and that she maybe went to see another guy, but he was not sure how she was not seen in any kind of footage. Now, because of Chris saying that he did cocaine with Kelly, the police had more than enough to get a search warrant of his apartment, where they found cocaine, painkillers, pills, smoking pipes. You name it, he probably had it. He's arrested for possession, but he plays it cool while waiting for his lawyer. Still had enough evidence for a warrant to search his phone, so they did that while the lawyer got there, and they found a shocking video of Chris and Kelly having sex while she's trying to catch her breath. She seemed in distress. She seemed in some parts unconscious, but this video was from 3 weeks ago at that point. So it didn't make sense that that's what happened that night that she went missing. They also found some disturbing pictures of Kelly where she seemed unconscious in his bed. Of course, this is not a crime. I'm not going to get into that because we probably see things differently. So they couldn't charge him with anything Kelly related, only the drug charges, which was enough anyways. Now, as they were searching his apartment, they noticed that the shower curtain hooks were torn, and you could see fragments of shower curtain. However, it was going to be very hard to prove that it had something to do with Kelly, but it looked like it's something that happened recently. Okay, so it was concerning, but there was no way that they could tell, well, this was something that happened, within 2 or 3 days. This could have happened way before. So it was almost like, okay, we notice it, but we really can't do anything about it right now. Now, they brought a dog to kind of see if it smelled something like a dead body. So the dog pointed to a few places, okay, that smelled like decomposing human remains. Specifically decomposing human remains. And it pointed at the outside of the apartment door, the parking garage, only on the level that Chris parked his car, on the dumpster door on the 18th floor, okay, in the hallway, in the guest bathroom, and in Chris's bed. Well, this is kind of incriminating, don't you think? But still not enough to charge him with anything. But this kind of indicated that Kelly did go to his apartment that night, and she more than likely died there. That is pretty much all they have, because, to be honest, it means that she was probably dead there, but it doesn't point to him killing her. Just that she died there. Now, because of the drug charges, the police was able to get a search warrant for his electronics, and they found an external drive with child pornography. And this was not any kind. It was kind of the most disturbing for some of the officers that worked in this case. Now, he and his mom said that, again, this is something that both said, when you're an IT, which I'm not, so I have no idea, but apparently you collect equipment from different jobs, and that drive was probably from somebody else in Boston. I don't know. You tell me, is that something that happens? It kind of looks very suspicious that the guy who has some kind of weird, I don't know how to even call it, but that kind of a sexual relationship with, to the point that he's choking somebody, and then all of a sudden you find this kind of content in one of his hard drives, so you're like, well, it kind of makes sense, but still. So now he faces serious charges, not Kelly related, again, because there's nothing that goes back to her, but enough to keep him in jail while they try to figure out what really happened. In one of the interviews, Chris mentioned that he was seeing other people, and that the police eventually found out about who was, because you see, the brother of this girl Megan, who happened to be the girlfriend, or at least the former girlfriend of Chris, he saw what was going on, and he decided to go to the police and find out what is going on. I mean, he just went to them and said, my sister is dating this guy since, and then he explained that it's been years. And so this kind of opened up a door to the police, and it kind of let in a lot more information that they were lacking of. Like, they took Megan to his apartment and asked her to go through every room and tell them, is there anything missing? And she did notice things missing. Like, she said that in the guest bathroom, the shower curtain was missing, something that the police noticed too, but didn't know when. So she confirmed that this was very recently. She also said that the little rag and matching towels were missing too from the bathroom where the dog smelled or detected the decomposing body. There was also a huge golf travel bag that was missing. And just so you know, this was a huge bag that was laying in front of the TV, but kind of in the way of the bathroom, and was there for weeks. And it was so annoying that Megan remembers having to step over it to get to the bathroom. Now, this large, padded, silver travel golf bag that is about 3 feet long now is missing. So they check the cameras, the 28 of them, and realize that really he never left the building with that bag. So where is it? Well, the cameras were motion activated, so they had to go through a few things just to make sure that there was no possible way that he could kind of avoid the cameras. However, that is always a possibility. But here's what they found while going through the footage. On Friday the 11th at 10:06 a.m., so this was the next, remember, they got in his apartment Friday the 11th at 2 or after 2 a.m. Now, at 10:06 a.m., you see Chris standing by the driver's side of the vehicle and then leaving at 10:08. At around that time, I think it was 10:10 or something like that, Kelly's phone goes dead and never comes back on. Now, police have a theory that he went to the river that is really close by and threw it there, because by 10:22 he's back at the parking garage with, apparently he's standing by the trunk of his car, and you can see that the trunk is open, so you can kind of see something The camera is pretty far away, but police believe that they found something, or that they spotted something silver. I have to say that I saw the footage and it looks like it, but gray is such a kind of blending color. I don't even know how to describe it, but if it was a yellow bag, I think you can see it better. If it was a red, if it was a pink, but being gray, it was kind of hard to see if really that was a bag, if there was, if it was the bottom, if it was a box. It was kind of hard to tell. But police were convinced that that was the golf bag that they were looking for. When the dog was finally taken to the car, he also pointed to the trunk and the door handle inside the vehicle. So, yes, there were some human remains put in that vehicle at some point. Now, they also see in that footage that he spends about 8 hours that day loading items into his car and ended up leaving for good at 6:16 p.m. From there, he decides to take, randomly, if you ask me, his summer sport equipment to his mother's house. Those would include golf gloves and his baseball equipment. Now, side note here, it would only make sense that he did that if he in fact used the bag to put, allegedly, Kelly's body inside, because if he had that bag, more than likely he had golf equipment in there, and all of a sudden he has so much golf equipment that he needed to go take it to his mom's place. Random, weird, yeah. Too much of a coincidence? I don't think so. Maybe he did remove everything from inside the bag, and that's why he had so much equipment that he didn't want to leave laying around the house. However, his mom said that he looked fine, nothing out of the ordinary. She also said that she never seen that particular bag that she was asked about, that big golf travel bag. And she also mentioned that Chris was going to have dinner at his girlfriend's house at 7:30 p.m. No, he didn't make it by 7:30 p.m. He actually made it to her house at 8:45 p.m. But he was briefly at his mom's. So he had some time that is unaccounted for, and the police theorized that he was probably looking for a spot to drop the body. Of course, this is allegedly at that point because they have no proof of it, but it is also interesting to know that for the unaccounted time, Chris' phone was off, but then all of a sudden was on when he was at his girlfriend's house, and he started kind of complaining of how his phone was not working properly. It was also very evident throughout dinner that he was nervous and that he was not himself. That night he stayed over, and to make things worse, the girlfriend noticed that he was not only restless, but he was sweating profusely to the point that she had to change the sheets. Now, it's interesting to know that the mom said that she saw him earlier and she said that he was just fine. So, in my opinion, allegedly, it seemed like the mom maybe was not being truthful, because unless he is able to put a face for his mom and another for the girlfriend, it wouldn't make sense. He would have to hide it from everyone, I would think. unless he did say something to his mom, and unless maybe she's not, maybe she didn't notice, or maybe she's not being 100% honest on how he looked that day. By 7:30 a.m. the next morning, he is leaving to go to a place called the Mouse House, which is a cheese place. Now, this is Wisconsin, so you're probably thinking, well, why would he go to a cheese place? Well, it's the place to be if you want to eat cheese. But this one in particular, it's 80 miles away from Milwaukee. And this is near Madison, Wisconsin. Which wouldn't make sense because there are a lot of cheese places that he could have gone closer to where he lives. When he was asked why he drove 160 miles round trip to buy cheese, he said that he bought a half a pound of cheese for his girlfriend's parents. Now, for the police, this was very convenient because, it seemed like he planned this very well. There's a lot of farmland between Madison and Wisconsin and Milwaukee. And so maybe he was looking for something while he was driving there. Now, okay, on his way back from that cheese place, he stops by a sports authority. And I don't know if he really didn't think this through, but he used his credit card to buy a new pair of sneakers. Maybe to get rid of evidence of the shoes that he was wearing. We don't know. But what this gave the police is a very strong timeline. Because he purchased the cheese at 9:55 a.m., and then he went and purchased the shoes at 12:11 p.m. The distance between the two places is only 54 miles. And according to the time that should have taken him was only 47 minutes. But it took him double. He took him 90 minutes. That really, I am not sure if it was in total or those 90 minutes were unaccounted for on top of the 47 that should have taken him. 90 minutes is enough time to find a secluded spot, get rid of the body. But the police knew that, but where? There are a million places they could have gone. So for right now, they had nothing because there's no body. Thankfully, and I say that not even sure what I mean by that, because really, the guy in November of 2014, he did finally go to trial, but horrible charges like the child pornography and possession of the drug possession, and he had quite a few charges and counts, and he was convicted of all of them but one count, I should say. A month later, he pleaded guilty, because pleading guilty would mean that his sentence was going to be a little bit shorter, and that is 19 years. But Kelly's case was still in the back burner, and there was nothing really that they could do to connect it to him. Yes, this guy is a piece of crap. He is involved in some things that people really condemn, and some other people think that it's their personal choice and it's just fine. But that's not enough to charge him with murder. Finally, on May 1st, 2015, the news broke, and they finally found Kelly's body. Now, this was not a police effort. It was actually located in a dead-end country road 45 miles west. That's where the kicker goes. I mean, west of Milwaukee and 6 miles away from I-94 under some trees. And again, this was not police effort. This was actually a local man who was walking when he caught what he described as a glint of light hitting off something white. When he got closer, he saw a human skull, and dental records confirmed that it was Kelly's body. Now, you have to understand that by now, there's only bones. There's no cause of death, no physical evidence, nothing. They couldn't find the curtain. They couldn't find any clothing, nor the towels, and certainly not a travel golf bag. But what they did find that kind of made sense of their theory is that the position of her body told us a different story. I mean, her feet and legs were completely turned, almost contorted to fit into something, some kind of container, and then dropped there. And to incriminate this guy a little bit more, the body was spotted close to where he was shopping that Friday that Kelly disappeared. I'm sorry, that's Saturday, not Friday. So he spent all Friday coming and going from his house, loading his car, and then went for dinner that Friday night to his girlfriend's, and then Saturday when he left to buy the cheese and the random sneakers at Sports Authority. That is the same time, in the same area, I should say, where the body was found. But to make a case to the point that you can convince a jury that you have more than enough evidence pointing his direction and there is no reasonable doubt, it took them a couple of years to come up with a solid case against Chris. And the safest way to do it in this case was to charge him with something that was not first-degree murder, but first-degree reckless homicide. He was also charged with hiding a corpse, strangulation, suffocation. You see, they believe that he enjoyed taking women to the brink of death for his own sexual gratification. And they had witnesses stating that he enjoyed this since he was in high school. I mean, they brought girls that dated him that said, yes, that's what he was into. So, according to the case that they put together, they determined that his reckless behavior is what caused her death, even if he didn't mean it. Now, they also said that they believe that he wrapped her in the shower curtain and put her inside the bag. Again, that part can't be proven because there was no footage of it. So no DNA, no physical evidence, but we know she was last seen with him entering his place, and we do know that she never came out alive. Something terrible happened there. And I mean, in this case, the defense had quite a few things that they could argue. One of the things that they argue is that the dog was not on film, so he was not recorded while showing what he found. So, according to the defense, now they were assured that the officers who took the dog were present, so they had to believe the officers that this in fact happened. Because again, it was not recorded, as the dog was pointing to the different places where he smelled a decomposing body. The defense argued that this kind of sex is not a crime. It is featured in movies like very popular ones. And it's practiced around. I mean, as long as both of the as long as both are okay with that, it shouldn't be a problem legally. They even brought a witness saying that he saw Kelly in a traffic light inside a vehicle that Friday. But really, the DA believed that the guy was not lying, that he maybe saw somebody that looked like Kelly. But at this point, they're 100%, not 100, but 90% sure that Kelly that Friday was already dead and probably in this guy's trunk. So in the end, there was a lot of back and forth and good points on the defense side. But he still was sentenced for it, and he got 31 years on top of those original 19 for being a pervert and a weirdo psycho guy for keeping that kind of content in that hard drive. It just really makes me sick to even think about it. I think the last time I was so disgusted was, remember that guy in the submarine who took the journalist who was writing an article on it? I can't remember the name right now. I remember when I did the research on that, and the guy, I mean, the kind of content he had on that computer, it was just ridiculous. And I'm talking about a successful guy with money, with everything that he could ever want, and still dealing with this kind of thing that you're like, I mean, they must be sick to really want to have this kind of content and to really do anything with it. It's just disgusting. And this was one of those cases that you're like, okay, what happened to Kelly is horrible. Maybe it is how the DA paints the story, like they were doing it because they wanted, but then, you know, maybe Chris took it a bit too far and ended up hurting her. But there are some indications that they had this kind of a relationship, if you can call it that, or encounters throughout their relationship. And now all the bruises make sense in her neck. This was something that was going on, and it was probably consensual. So I think that the DA taking the approach of, oh my goodness, something went wrong while they were doing something that they were used to doing, or that they both enjoyed. But sadly, you still have to pay for something that took the life of somebody else. And again, I'm not here to judge anybody who has different taste in things. I just think that the part of the contents that they found, I can't even say it, because to me it's just so disgusting, and it's so inappropriate, and it's so sick, because I truly believe that people that are using, let me say it in a way that it doesn't make me want to throw up in my mouth, using this kind of content for whatever, they're sick. I mean, there's no way that you can not be sick. And I mean, That is the kind of sickness that makes you wonder, is it even possible? Is it even possible for that people to get better or to overcome that addiction? And I mean, how can you? It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. So to be honest, in my head, it kind of makes sense. The DA approach on this, of a couple of adults doing something that they wanted to do willingly on both parts, and something went wrong. And how do you explain the cameras? Well, I don't know. But he was good with computers. He could have done something. I am pretty sure that they went through that. I am pretty sure that there's capable people that look and see if maybe he messed with something, if maybe there was a bug or something for a specific period, if there's any way that he could have turned off a few cameras so he could take the bag out. But I mean, we can kind of make sense of that, right? Maybe he did something. Or maybe the guy was smart enough to know all the spots or all the kind of movement that the camera would pick up and the ones that wouldn't. Maybe from a certain angle. I mean, you have to understand the guy knows about this. He manages information. He's in the part of securing that information. So it only makes sense, right, that he would know how to work around those things. What wouldn't make sense is Kelly leaving in a way that she's not spotted by the cameras. Because why not? Why are you hiding? So, okay, we don't see Kelly walking out alive in the cameras. And we don't see him carrying anything that the police believe that he carried in order to get rid of her. But who has more chances to kind of trick those cameras? And I mean, you're working with a guy that knows how not to be found. Turn off his phone so he doesn't get pinned to different antennas. I mean, it just seemed like a very smart guy to me. Exactly the way I described him in the beginning by his mother, friends, acquaintances. And in the end, this is a bunch of circumstantial evidence that point to him. And maybe if he had a better lawyer, maybe he could have gotten away with that. But I think it's just too much. It's too much that the body showed up in the area where he was on that Saturday, and with so much time unaccounted for. So in the end, you start putting two and two together, and there is no way, even though everything is circumstantial, there is no way that there is other possibility. How her phone all of a sudden was turned off, was never found. You just leave it to a guy who knows what he's doing. You know, in the technical side, to kind of know how to cover his butt. And no matter the kind of relationship that he had with Kelly, and no matter if this was an accident, you know, something really bad happened here. And instead of calling somebody for help at that point and trying to help her in any way, he decided to hide it. And he decided to do exactly the opposite. And get rid of the body. And be sneaky. And work his way around it. Such a tragic case, you know. And talked about all the angles and different things involved in this case. But in the end, it's just all about Kelly and the risk that was involved in the kind of activities that they enjoyed together. I don't know what happened with the real girlfriend. I don't know why he wouldn't be himself with her. Because apparently he was a completely different person when he was with this girl, Megan. But his true self was that guy doing that since he was in high school. And now it went south, and now he felt the need to hide it and felt the need to maybe he felt guilty. And that's why he said that they were doing drugs, because if he didn't say in the beginning that they were doing drugs, they wouldn't have had enough to search his place. They would have never been able, because of the information that they had, they were not going to be able to get enough to get a search warrant on his cell phone, electronics and things. And to be honest, he was caught in a whole lot more things because of him confessing to that. Was it him feeling guilty about what happened to her because he didn't mean it? Or he maybe thought, if I confess to this, I'll look like, oh my goodness, this guy is confessing to drugs. He's not gonna, Such a horrible thing. And such a horrible case, Let me know what you think about it. What do you think happened to Kelly? Do you think that he planned this whole thing? Or you really believe, like I do, that this just got out of hand? And there's something my dad used to tell me since I was a little girl. I mean, you can play with fire once, you can play with fire twice, but eventually you're going to burn. Something is going to burn. Your finger, your hair. You can only play with fire safely for so long until something goes wrong. And I think that's what happened here. But maybe you think otherwise. So I'd love to know what you think about this horrible case with a whole lot of circumstantial evidence. If you were in that jury, what would you have done? Would you convicted him for that? Or it was not enough for you to be convinced that he was the one who did it? Thanks for being here today, guys. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye, guys.